Hello everyone. This is chapter 16 from my contemporary romance novel Under a Namibian Sky. Having checked that the breakfast things were loaded onto the truck, and having made sure that the walkie-talkie had enough battery, Naomi arrived at the guest lounge. To her surprise, Luca and Santina weren't the only people waiting for her there. Johan, who had stayed the night, Kerry and Stefan occupied chairs as they enjoyed steaming mugs of coffee. Luca looked up when she entered, his smile breathtaking. "Buongiorno, amore. As you can see, the party is continuing. You don't mind?" How could she mind? But she was feeling a little disappointed at not having Luca to herself for the last time. What was she doing? Hadn't she decided it was for the best? Swallowing the slight pang of disappointment that refused to leave, Naomi returned his smile. "Of course not. As you always say, the more the merrier." While she waited for her guests to finish their coffees, Naomi arranged with the kitchen staff to add to the breakfast offerings on the truck. But she'd noticed Auntie Elsa's absence and went to knock on her bedroom door. It seemed like ages before Auntie Elsa opened the door. Her adoptive mother was still in her nightdress, her hair in disarray. Evidently, she'd only just woken. It struck Naomi suddenly how much older Auntie Elsa looked. When did she age so much? She smiled at the older woman. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Don't you want to join us on the sunrise safari? Santina is coming along too." Auntie Elsa seemed disoriented. She put a hand on Naomi's shoulder. "Darling, you have fun with them, and please give my apologies to Santina. I'll see her later. I have a few things here to see to." Naomi stared at the door for a few moments after Auntie Elsa had closed it. It was unusual behaviour for Auntie Elsa. Naomi put her hand on the door. She'd check up on her adoptive mother on her return. The others were waiting. Naomi returned to the kitchen. No sooner had everything been loaded onto the truck than her guests came walking around the building. Luca helped Santina into the truck and then approached Naomi, but she'd beaten him to it and sat waiting in the driver's seat. He smiled at her, took long strides around the truck and slid into the seat beside her. Naomi started the engine and drove through the gate into the desert. Everyone seemed in a good mood. Conversation flowed as she drove to the waterhole where they could see the biggest concentration of animals so early in the morning. Ahead of them, the sun was rising over the red dunes, obliterating the stars. Luca had his digital camera around his neck and took pictures of the dunes, the animals, and the sunrise. Naomi had a sneaky suspicion he'd taken pictures of her, but each time she looked at him, he seemed to be concentrating elsewhere, when moments before she felt certain his camera had been aimed in her direction. That's when Naomi noticed that Stefan was also snapping away as enthusiastically as Luca. She felt a smile form around her mouth. No matter how successful these men had become, they remained boys. After about an hour at the waterhole, Naomi took a circuitous route back to the lodge, which she knew would take them to a special surprise for her guests. Their reactions didn't disappoint when they neared the enormous old acacia tree that hosted a massive communal bird's nest. Otoyan had once told her it was over 100 years old and quite a miracle. In the high heat of summer, these nests usually caught fire and didn't exist for very long. That this one had survived for so many years was astounding. Her guests were suitably awed and impressed, and Naomi felt it was the perfect place for their sunrise breakfast. But no one seemed hungry at that time of the morning. They wanted coffee and said they'd prefer breakfast at the lodge. Soon everyone was standing around, a mug of steaming coffee in hand, admiring the enormous bird's nest from different angles as they walked around the tree. Tiny birds, among a cacophony of twittering, flew in and out of the nest. It was amazing to see how each small bird found their own nest in such an enormous complexity of straw and mud woven together to create a veritable bird metropolis. With their coffee cravings satisfied, they continued on their way back to the lodge. But Stefan made Naomi stop when he noticed abandoned ostrich eggs he wanted to photograph. The morning sun rose higher in the cloudless blue sky as the symphony of animal sounds grew stronger. Naomi took a deep breath as she leaned against the side of the truck, waiting for Stefan to satisfy his urge to photograph the eggs. Even though her heart felt heavy at the thought of Luca leaving later that day, the desert's healing powers buoyed up her spirits. The drive back to the lodge went without more stops, but both Luca and Stefan continued their photographic endeavours. By the time Naomi pulled the truck back under the porch near the kitchen, both Neil and Gerard, the other two desert guides, pulled their vehicles alongside hers back from their safaris. Guests from all three vehicles disembarked, chatted and laughed, and shared their sunrise experiences as they went to their rooms or to the Lapa. Some guests, having worn their bathing suits under their clothes, undressed at the pool's edge and jumped into the swimming pool. In the kitchen, several members of the staff were enjoying an early breakfast around the large acacia wooden table. There was no sign of Auntie Elsa anywhere. Naomi went to knock on her door again. "Auntie Elsa? Are you in there?" After several moments, the door opened, and Auntie Elsa stood there, still in her nightdress, rubbing at her eyes. She'd obviously gone back to bed since they spoke earlier that morning. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you up again. Are you okay?" Auntie Elsa yawned. "What time is it?" "It's time for breakfast." Naomi led Auntie Elsa back into her room and sat her down on the edge of her bed. She went to sit next to her adoptive mother. When she put a compassionate arm around her shoulders, Naomi could feel the woman's bones under her nightdress. When had she lost that much weight? Naomi inspected Auntie Elsa. Something was clearly ailing her adoptive mother. "What's wrong? Are you ill?" Auntie Elsa shook her head and ran a hand through her hair. "No, I'm fine. I must just be exhausted." It was as if the older woman suddenly realized Naomi was sitting next to her. She turned her sharp eyes on her adoptive daughter. "Have you just come back from the safari?" Naomi nodded, her arm still around Auntie Elsa's shoulders, her eyes searching Auntie Elsa's, as though to make sure she was still in there. "I'll join you in the Lapa for breakfast. I take it that's what the others are doing." "Yes, they are. I'm on my way there now. But are you sure? If you're not feeling well?" No, I'm fine. I just overslept. It's okay. You go ahead. I'll see you there soon." Auntie Elsa got up and shooed Naomi out of her room so she could get ready. Outside the door, Naomi hesitated. She wanted to believe everything was okay, but a dark feeling lurked inside her body. She gave herself a pep talk. They'd had a few late nights. Hadn't she overslept yesterday, after her siesta when Kerry had come to her rescue? Of course Auntie Elsa was tired. Naomi decided the dark feeling was there because Luca and Santina were leaving later that afternoon. With a glance at Auntie Elsa's door, Naomi made her way to the Lapa for the last breakfast with Luca and Santina. Johan, Stefan and Kerry had also joined their table. Naomi felt relieved to notice Kerry and Stefan seemed to have buried their differences. They were chatting and laughing like old friends. Luca had leaned forward as he talked with Johan and Santina, but sat back in his chair when Naomi slid into the chair beside him. His dark eyes were intent on her, and his smile lit up his lovely face. He seemed like a god among men. How was he even real? It was a thought that had often snuck in Naomi's mind. Luca leaned towards her, and his voice, when he spoke so near her ear, sent shivers down her spine. "Is this our last breakfast together, amore?" Naomi squinted at him. What could he mean? "It is, isn't it? Or do you mean you're staying longer?" Her heart beat fast and loud as the words left her lips. The question had just popped out. She hadn't meant to ask it, but now it was out. Is that what he meant? Luca took her hand. It felt warm and sensual and swallowed hers. "Unfortunately, I cannot stay longer, but trust me when I say I deeply wish I could." His eyes burned into hers, his pupils dilating as they stared at each other. Naomi felt goosebumps appearing all over her body. How could she forget his lips on hers, on her neck? She lowered her eyes to break the connection. Her voice sounded husky in her ears when she spoke. "Oh, I see." Luca put a finger under her chin and lifted her head back so he could look into her eyes once more. "I don't want it to be our last." What was he saying? As she looked at him, her glance went to his arm and the small red spot where his drip had been just a few days ago. The image of Luca slumped between Otayan and the younger guard flashed across her mind's eye. No. Whatever Luca was saying, she dared not imagine or wish it. It was just too dangerous. Her heart was still galloping fast and loud, but for an altogether different reason. The dark feeling grew. The fear in her body squeezed a tight band around her torso. I'm sorry, Luca. I don't mean to be rude, but I need to check on Auntie Elsa. She wasn't feeling well earlier." Luca released her hand at once, empathy shining from his eyes. "Of course, amore. You must go to her. I understand. We'll talk later." Naomi got up and hurried away as fast as she could. Maybe Santina was right. Maybe Luca had developed a soft spot for her. Perhaps she was a little more than a mere vacation fling for him. If she understood him, his words seemed to imply it. Why else would he want to have more breakfasts with her? Surely you only wanted more breakfasts with people you wanted in your life. A maelstrom of emotions coursed through her as she fought to keep the tears that burned behind her eyes from spilling. She blinked and wiped them away, feeling suddenly cross with Luca. Why did he have to be so wonderful? Why did he have to be interested in her? Why did he have to make her fall in love with him? How was she going to live her life now, knowing she'll meet no one else who could live up to him? She fought hard to get her emotions under control. It won't be long now. He'd be gone this afternoon, and with him, gone also the chaos and anguish he'd caused her. But she knew she was just fooling herself. Her feelings wouldn't disappear because he'd left. As she came around the corner, Auntie Elsa came walking toward her. The smile she gave Naomi was reassuring and immediately calming. "Have you come looking for me?" Naomi did her best to ignore the pain and the constricted feeling in her chest. She winked at Auntie Elsa. "I had to check you haven't gone back to bed again." Auntie Elsa laughed. The cheerful sound did much to diminish some of Naomi's anxiety. This was what mattered. This kind, strong woman who had become the most important person in the world to her. The love and the bond they shared, and living here was all she knew as home. Sometimes she'd still feel like an outsider, but it wasn't anything Auntie Elsa or anyone else here did or said. It was only her ghosts come to visit. She stuck her arm through Auntie Elsa's, and together they walked to the Lapa to join their friends. Kerry's madcap ideas, Johan's booming laughter, and Stefan's new engaging persona helped to make what could have been a sad affair into an excellent farewell breakfast. There was still something about Stefan. Naomi couldn't put her finger on it, but for now he seemed fine. Just as breakfast finished, a photographer arrived to take pictures for the dining room wall of Auntie Elsa with Luca and Auntie Elsa with Stefan. The photo shoot drew curious glances from other guests. Luca had made a huge impression on them with his video presentation of the Ellie the night before. As he came to stand next to Naomi in the shade of the lapa, several people came to shake his hand and thank him again. Naomi stepped away from Luca to allow more people near him. Instead, she watched as Auntie Elsa and Stefan had their picture taken. That's when she noticed the expression on Stefan's face. Although he was smiling at the camera, it looked more like a grimace as his nostrils flared white. He seemed deeply displeased by all the attention heaped on Luca. Again, Naomi got a weird feeling about him. But moments later, he was his jovial self again and came to stand next to Luca, basking in his limelight. Otayan and some guards appeared near the swimming pool. They were there to collect the guests who were going on a walking safari with them. Stefan, seeing this, decided to join the walking safari. As he disappeared around the corner, everyone let out a collective and rather loud sigh of relief. Surprised by each other's reactions, everyone burst out laughing. Thank you very much for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for liking and sharing my videos. And most of all, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. It means everything to me because it allows me to make more videos like this one. Until next time.